Okay, hi Marina. It's really nice to find this time to talk about this subject, which is of interest to me. I encounter it quite a lot in the work I do, which is managers not succeeding in their roles for lots of reasons, really. So, if you could just give us a little intro about how we've been working together and where you're from, that would be great.
Thanks, Corinne. Yes, so I'm Marina, I work at Sabre. I've been there for 3 years now, heading up customer success and all of the client delivery. And Corinne and I met about a year ago now because we are solving a similar problem or the same problem, which is essentially managers not having the skills or knowledge to be excellent managers. And I think more specifically that we come to it from quite a similar angle, which is, and it's your motto, it's not the knowing that's difficult, it's the doing. Very much how we also approach the problem at Sabre.
Yeah, it is. It's something when if we're working with clients, they hear quite a lot because it is so true. So in that context, you've got some reasons we've talked about before about what stops managers being successful in their roles and what are the reasons for it. So kick us off, Marina. What's the first one?
Awesome. So I think the very first one is managers with no support. And I'll use a little bit of an example of my own experience. Before Sabre, I was working at a startup. We were growing fast. After just 6 months there, I hired and trained a team to help me. I was 23, and up to that point, I had never experienced good management myself.
Yeah, that's interesting.
I didn't really know what it looked like. I had no point of reference of saying, well, I've had this awesome manager and I will apply what I learnt from them to my team. So I didn't really know how to develop my employees. My managerial style, if you can call it that, was very much remove any blockers that they have so that they can do their jobs. But I certainly didn't know how to lead the team as a unit, motivate, get them to rally behind the same kind of purpose. And what was, I think, perhaps hardest was that I had no training or tools to help me. I think that's probably the number one reason why managers struggle is that you're kind of thrown into a manager role.
It's just such a hit on your morale as well and your self-esteem, I bet, at 23. I see it myself. People take something on and then they're flailing and like so often it's not their fault, but I bet you really felt it.
Yeah, I'm a bit of a perfectionist as well, so
Yeah.
it was definitely something I would take home and be like, okay, how can I be a better
Yeah.
manager? And
Yeah.
and there's definitely a lot out there online, and you can find the resources, but it wasn't made easy. I'd put it that way.
Yeah. So significant reason is support isn't there. So you're expected to fly and unfortunately without that support you might flail.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And what I also felt at the time was that this is what I should be doing to become more.
Yeah.
So to gain more experience and to be moving on up in the so-called career ladder, I should be leading a team. And that actually leads me into the second big issue is that we associate career progression with leadership, almost to the extent that everyone wants to progress in their careers. And if we associate those two things, it means that everyone thinks they need to be a manager or wants to be a manager, regardless of whether their natural strengths are suited to management, and regardless of whether they'd even enjoy that over other aspects of working life. I think that's another big issue. I do speak to some of my friends about this, and a couple of them work in companies where that's changing. So you can become more senior and really get very far up in the company without necessarily becoming a manager. So I think that's a really helpful change in mentality.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely see that. Somebody's technically really good, and I see it a lot in IT businesses where people are really, really technically great, And then the only option for them is to people manage, and like some of them don't want to anyway, but it's just this natural push, isn't it? So yeah, I definitely am starting to see that technical lead or that specialist lead, which means that their salaries actually have a relationship to it as well. So yeah.
So yeah, a positive move, I think, overall, just for the mentality.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Some
yeah.
people are naturally have strengths that are naturally more suited to being a manager than others.
Yeah. Okay. Third reason.
Yeah. The third reason is people don't have the time for it, and this is a particularly frustrating one. For me, I speak to lots of managers, and quite often we hear this, that well, I don't have the time, and what they mean is don't have the time for leading employees one-on-one, developing their strengths, developing their careers overall, or coaching the team as a unit. And part of me, I think sometimes it's the manager not prioritizing or making the time. Other times it's perhaps that they really have so much on their plate that they cannot find the time. But what I often say is that leading a team of, say, 8 people is a full-time job in itself. It's not something to do on top of everything else. And yeah, as I say, I speak to people with this mentality quite often, like managing the team is something they do on top of their main responsibilities, instead of being one of those big responsibilities that they have. Do you feel that?
Definitely. Yeah, as a sense that they still have deliverables getting that within the team. They're still expected to contribute in exactly the same way. Plus, oh, by the way, I want you to manage the team. And it's like they've got one arm tied behind their back because they're not equipped to do it sometimes, and they haven't got the capacity to do both. And then again, I suppose a strong feeling is this, in which I see, is they feel like they're failing again because they're not able to even deliver on their original job. So
exactly.
Yeah.
Or
No, I see it.
In the evenings or outside
In
of
the
work.
evenings. Yeah. And then I think it links closely to what you're going to say next, really, because the I don't have time thing I hear all the time. And there's lots of reasons for that. And then it might not be this particular one, that they haven't actually been take their role taken away from them. But if they don't know how to delegate because they haven't got the skill set about how to do it, and they still want to be involved with every single aspect of delivery, and they want to kind of micromanage, then they're not going to be able to do it well. So leading on to your fourth point.
Yeah, that leadership development isn't working particularly well. In the case where the company does acknowledge that, okay, we need to develop leaders, we need to provide them with more support, it's not doing a good enough job at actually applying to managers' day-to-day challenges. Quite often we have people developing these skills in an off-site or a one-time workshop, even a series of workshops. But again, it's coming back to your mottos. It's not the knowing that's difficult, it's the doing. So you can teach, train people in management skills, but it doesn't always translate back to the actual working context of the day. I think one of the reasons for that is that we don't retain knowledge very well at all. As humans,
fantastic.
But the other reason is that we learn by doing. So we need to practice management skills and refine leadership behaviours in real life situations. Another reason why I think leadership development isn't doing a particularly good job is it's often restricted to senior leaders. There's this old school view that if, when you start your career, you become a manager, and then later you develop into a leader as you become more senior. And I think that mentality is really not helpful, because every single manager needs leadership skills, regardless of how, where you are in that kind of hierarchy. You need those skills to get the best out of your team. So we need to be equipping leaders early on in their career with the basic skills of being a good leader and manager.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like you kind of wait until that person's got to a seniority where they'll have like potentially entrenched some of the poor leadership behaviors we see. Let's wait until they're really kind of stuck in their ways and don't actually, rather than working with people that have got this potentially much more open view about what leadership is and how they can operate it. And having those role models, like you said, you were 23, never had a good manager. I mean, I speak to loads of people, their manager is not having those great conversations. They're not spending that time. So they are then pushing that type of behavior out to the people in their team. So it just perpetuates.
Exactly. And it's a really good point you made there about how difficult it is to unlearn behaviors.
Yeah, it's a big one, isn't it? I think.
Absolutely.
I definitely see that.
Anyone who's tried to break some kind of habit, will know that it's really tough to do that.
You're kind of like forgetting against that forgetting curve. You're trying to push against that, which is the thing you spoke about before, which the statistics on that are fascinating about how much you retain and how much you lose within a day. And that is scary. When I first looked at that, I thought, oh my gosh, it really whenever I deliver anything now, I'm like, how can we just shift this whole thing so it's not going to just go down tomorrow? And that's that sense of the doing, that actually taking it and doing something with it straight away that can make a real difference. And then the unlearning, how to work with that as well. So you've got there's interesting but not insurmountable challenges with a slight shift of mindset about it, isn't it?
Yeah, and as I say, a lot of the issues that I've talked about so far, they are changing slowly and over time. I think companies are realizing that they have to provide managers with support in the moment, in their day-to-day context, not learning that's kind of separate, and then they need to try and apply in the work context. So we're finding many more companies coming to us and saying, we want learning that's in the flow of work and that makes it really easy for managers to actually apply the knowledge in their conversations with their team. At the end of the day, that's most of what management is, right? The conversations you have with your employees one-on-one or with your team as a whole. So how can we support managers in those conversations?
Excellent, great. I think that's a great place to end. I mean, I think we could talk about this and all different aspects of it for quite a while, but it is obviously our passion. So thank you very much, Marina. Really insightful. Lovely to speak to you.
Thanks for having me.
Bye.
Bye.